against women as an enduring manifestation of inequality needs to be addressed. So the onus is upon all of the governments in the Pacific member states of the United Nations to act progressively towards achieving these things.
So, Mima, what I get out of this, you can always ask a government to implement laws, but you can't force them. In Fiji, do you think a scenario exists that you have been asking but nothing has been done?
No, actually, a lot has been done. We have, as I was saying, we have things like the no-drop policy. We have had a review of the penal code. We have a draft domestic violence legislation gathering dust on the. All those things have been done. You know, it's in the Legal Law Reform Commission. So, and you know, each successive government, very hard to move them. But the intense lobbying and advocacy by women's group, the women's movement, the feminist women's movement has achieved those things. But they're sitting there, you know, the implementation, as I said, to put resources into it. One of the big achievements was, of course, the Family Law Act. But again, we have got a family court and so on. But implementation, once again, though it's under-resourced, that is one of the main problems. Enough funding is not given by governments, and technical assistance to laws and courts and so on, which would respond positively to crimes of violence against women and children.
Elizabeth, we have conventions, we have international programs, international seminars. We get together, we speak about gender equality, but at the end of the day, it's all on paper. How do you get down to the part where action is needed?
I think one of the first things is that you have to have an effective machinery for the representation and dedicated to addressing the interests of women as a half of the society that is subjected to discrimination. You need a well-financed national women's machinery, ministry, for example. But you also need the government to be responsive, to be sensitive to these issues. So if you have, for example, male-dominated...
Ministers not giving advice to women to move around in groups? That's out?
No, this is absolutely insensitive to the situation of women and absolutely diametrically opposed to the kind of freedom and the enjoyment of the basic human rights that all women should be entitled to. So it's a very retrogressive statement to suggest that women should participate less and less in society. Women should lock themselves in their homes. Women should not be out unless they're in groups. And even then, if something happens to them, that they're to blame. So I think at one end, which is another part of our work, getting more women into parliaments, getting more women into the legislature, at the decision-making table, having legislation, policies and budgets reflect the kind of concerns we're talking about, proper financing of the machinery of government that works for women, but also you need decision makers who are sensitive. So it would be a great advantage to get many more women in Parliament, because one assumes that they would be more responsive to the lobby that comes from the women, and maybe able to educate the men in leadership.
Shamima, just before you go to the break, you've been an advocate for more than 2 decades now. You are still at it. How long can you continue this work?
As long as it takes, and that is what human rights defenders are all about. You never say, I'm just going to, because it's not happening. We also have to celebrate the achievements. And there have been. The fact we're talking about it here, sitting down on closeup and talking about these issues, that is an achievement. And, and we must also realize that there are things that happen, like natural disasters, political instability, I keep saying, which contribute and makes the situation worse. So while we can take a few steps, at a time, and we say, yes, we're getting somewhere, once these things happen, women's situation worsens. It has an impact, a very, very terrible impact on women and their advancement and so on. So we must take all those things into account.
Thank you very much. See you after the break. Welcome back. Tonight is International Women's Day, and in the studio, Shamima Ali, Women's Crisis Center. Question to you: how do you target men